Final feelings for Georgia and the Rebels. This is a really important game for Georgia. I think this is a big test for them. We're gonna have to see, man. I mean, there's a lot on the line here for this game. Obviously, Ole Miss, they just can't lose again. But let's not concentrate too much on the Rebels. They're 7-2. They don't have a lot. This is kind of they're a little bit like Tennessee in that there's not so much left to win from here on out. They got Florida. They got a trip to Florida and they host Mississippi State. If they're going to make a move, it's got to be right now. But I got to tell you, with that loss to Kentucky, and with just so many people stacked behind them, this is must win for Mississippi on Saturday. It's not must win for Georgia, but you really should win. Like this is the time to do it because Georgia right now is, you win this game and you are almost certainly in the playoff. Like that's you lose to Tennessee, which I'm skeptical what happened. Then but Georgia at that point would have a lot of quality wins and they would still have the Tennessee game to build on. But Georgia definitely can lose this game. This is a game you better watch it if you're Kirby and them. And they know that. I saw the I'll put it on the screen here in a second. I saw the injury report for the Rebels. I mean, they got half their roster on here, y'all. As I mosey on over to Dawg Post, you make sure you're signing up for our newsletter. You'll be getting this in your email box. But they have a slew of players that are on this report. I mean, this whole season I've not seen so many of these, but you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys that are out or doubtful, and then another 7 or something like that are 8 that are it's 10. I mean it's tremendous amount of questionable. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I said it right the first time. So that's a lot of guys that you're like, I don't know. Even they're really good players on the defensive line are in a situation where they're not totally sure. I mean, Nolan and Prince both are probables. Look, those guys don't play or get hurt. This is a very different game. I mean, tremendously different. And obviously, Etienne is going to play in this game. We're still waiting on Roderick Robinson, Branson Robinson, Anthony Edwards probably out again. Smallman questionable. It may be that here soon Georgia's going to get the band back together. We might not be that far away from getting the band back together, but in the meantime, they're going to have to figure out how to grind these games out. Jackson Dart has been a really good player for Ole Miss. He has been a really good player, particularly when they're not in the SEC, not in SEC play. With that said, last week against the Hogs, the guy throws for 6 touchdowns, 81%, 515 yards. He goes for almost 50 on the ground. That is a total anomaly compared to what he's been most of the season in SEC play. He's been good. He has been good. I mean, look at the Oklahoma game, 73%, 1 touchdown. The Kentucky game, 67%, 1 touchdown. Against LSU and Carolina, a little bit lower, combining in 50% against Carolina, 52 and then 57 against LSU. 1 touchdown, 1 interception in those games. Gets sacked 6 times against LSU, 4 times against Kentucky. You want to beat Ole Miss, you attack Jackson Dart. He's only thrown 3 interceptions this season, only 1 in SEC play. He's been pretty good in terms of that. If you watch the games, though, there are interceptions to be had, like most quarterbacks. Unlike Carson Beck, Jackson Dart's only thrown over 40 once this season. So he's not been asked to do as much as Carson has, generally speaking. And for a high-flying offense, you would expect that from Lane. But that's not been the case. I mean, here lately, the last 3 games Georgia's played, Carson's thrown the ball 40 times or more. The four of the last 5, he's done that. You take a look at the only game lately that he's not thrown for 40 plus was Auburn. And by the way, he's still got a pretty good, against Florida, even with the 3 interceptions, 63% passing, 75% passing at State. A lot of those were side to side. Auburn, 80% passing, 62% passing against the Cats, 70% passing against Clemson. It's these interception games. 3 against Florida, 2 against Texas, 3 against Alabama, 2 against State. That is problematic. When you get into SEC play and you've got 11 interceptions just in league play alone, that's not good, right? I think we can all agree that is not where you want to be. The question becomes, when does he revert to playing the way he did against Auburn, Kentucky, and Clemson? I don't know. He might not. I mean, this may be what it is. And Georgia's going to have to get around that, particularly if they don't run the ball effectively. So that's why you take a look at the Ole Miss injuries. You take a look at the Ole Miss defensive line. This is not like what they've had in the past. Ole Miss in the past had porous line. Their offensive line still might not be unbelievable. Let me just say that real quick out loud. I mean, a lot of this stuff, it may just be that their offensive line might not be quite what they'd want it to be. The defensive line is pretty good. I'm watching Carson Beck highlights down here at the bottom, including interceptions. And, on interceptions, it almost always looks like, what are you throwing to? And, that's the case with Carson too. So the return to the performance of 2023, where he went as a season almost 4,000 yards, 72% completion, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 4 touchdowns running the ball, including one in the SEC championship game. He's not run for a touchdown this season. He's 17-11. If he were to somehow get to, and I don't think this is out of the question considering the amount of games he could play, if you start talking about he goes, 31 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, 2-to-1 ratio, that wouldn't be the end of the world. They probably win the national championship if you did that. I mean, you're talking about at that stage, you'd be throwing, just really quick math there, you'd be throwing 14 more touchdowns to 4 interceptions. That's much more like what he was like last year. But they're going to need to run the ball more effectively. Ole Miss is pretty good defensively. They're noticeably better than last year. That's the part to me that is so obvious. When you look at national statistics, you cannot trust Ole Miss's national statistics because the first 5 games, they won 76-0, 52-3, 40-6, and 52-13. They looked unbelievable. They have not scored over 30 in SEC play the entire season, with the exception of this last week. They're the number 2 total offense in the country. They couldn't score 20 points against Kentucky. They're the number 1 total offense in the country. They couldn't score over 30 against Carolina. Against Carolina. They couldn't score over 30 against LSU. They couldn't score over 30 against Oklahoma. They're the number 1 passing offense in the country. They're the number 2 total offense in the country. They're the number 4 total offense as scoring offense in the country. And my suspicion is that they have fewer points per game in SEC play than Georgia. I don't know that because they scored 63 against Arkansas, but the defense is pretty good though. Like, they're not exactly getting lit up. They've not allowed more than 30 this season in SEC play, except the one time against Arkansas, right? It's the Arkansas game. When you're scoring 94 points in a game, everybody's getting their jollies, man. I'm like, everybody's going crazy, and it's just a cacophony of points. But it is hard to take a look at Ole Miss, statistically speaking, and being like, hey, this is what sticks out. What sticks out are the first 4 games where they scored over 40 or more every single game, and 3 of them they scored 52 or more. Like, when you're doing that, you're really good on offense. But they got into league play, and it slowed down like hardcore. Like someone was walking in a crosswalk, you didn't see him, you're slamming the brakes. That's what it's like for Ole Miss. Now, I want to say Georgia's been in a road position a lot this year. I mean, at Kentucky, which this game will be more like than any other in terms of crowd, at Alabama, the game at Texas and Jacksonville and the Gators and Clemson too. So they've been in non-home situations a lot. The crowd's not going to affect them. If what happened with at Texas, at Alabama, I mean, Georgia scored 30 points on both those teams on the road. Like you score 30 on the road or more, you should win. They didn't at Alabama, but you should. So I don't think that's really going to be a challenge. The thing that to me, considering everything, I mean, Ole Miss, there's two things that I maybe should have started off with here. But you're 11 minutes into this thing, and you like to hear me talk. Maybe some of you like to watch me. That's your deal. I'm good with it. The things that are really problematic to me, Ole Miss has not had the second bye yet, and they need it. I mean, they're closing here. They have not had a bye. I don't think since after the LSU game. So that's a long time to not have a bye, and everybody else has had two. Them, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, and State, I think, are the 4 teams in the 16-team SEC have not had their second bye yet. So there's that. Even worse, and this could be why they are not going to beat Georgia. They are 131st in the country in yards per penalty yards per game. 131. Like, that's really bad. And, when you were watching them, it's 86 yards a game. That's a touchdown or a field goal at least. That could be multiple field goals if you think, or multiple touchdowns. You can't give away that many yards, but they are. And that is a disaster situation there. You cannot have that. But here we are. They are second to the bottom. The only teams worse are Liberty and Texas San Antonio, or Tennessee San Antonio, because no one cares. Like, that's a problem. Alabama, they're way down at the bottom too, man. Georgia had its own issues, and they still do, but they're not at that tail end. I mean, these other guys are going 15 yards, 16 yards, 17, excuse me. I'll keep counting, count. 16 yards a game more than Georgia. It's a problem, man. That's a lot of penalties. And I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. They have 200 plus yards more than Georgia in penalty yardage. That's an issue for sure. That jumps out in a very big way. You could explain it away a little bit for Georgia because they've only played at home 3 times. So you want to make that argument? Okay, whereas the Rebels have played at home 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They played 5 home games. The 3 aways were Carolina, LSU, Arkansas. The 4 aways were Wake, Carolina, LSU, and Arkansas. Like the Wake game, come on, the Arkansas crowd didn't exist. So some of these, that to me, it means you're not disciplined. It means that when you play good teams, you're not going to play. You're not going to be able to do whatever you want to do. And what I always describe it as is they're going to make you play left-handed, which is what you had to do in basketball or the other sport I played. They're going to make you hit backhands. We don't want to hit backhands. We want to serve and hit forehands. That's what we want to do. So, let's serve and hit forehands. And for Ole Miss, that's getting guys one-on-one on the outside. That's, throwing the ball enough to where you can go fast. Stuff like that. Being efficient. They're the number 2 team in the country in passing efficiency. They really, if they get going on you, you got a problem. You got a real challenge on your hand. Georgia's 40th, probably because of the interceptions. But You got 23 touchdowns and 3 interceptions all year for Ole Miss. Now, again, the scoring has happened in non-SEC games with the exception of the Arkansas game. Is Georgia better than Kentucky? Yes. Is Georgia better than LSU? I think they are. Is Georgia better than Oklahoma? For sure. Are they better than, Wake Forest, all these teams that Ole Miss has kind of dealt with? Yeah, they are. And, I'm just saying that this could be a tricky game for Georgia. That's all. It's totally a game they can lose. It doesn't mean they will. I'm just saying they need to go play well. For instance, I'm just looking at these crowds. Wake Forest, Ole Miss went to play. There was 33,000 people at that game. That's like playing at Vanderbilt. That's not playing on the road. That's you left your facility to play a game in another state. That's not playing on the road. This is going to be 67,000. Let's just call it 68,000 people. It's like playing at Kentucky or it's not a big place. It's not a big place. Georgia, when they played at Kentucky, played in front of 62,000. This is going to be about 67,000. It's not going to be that much. And how many Georgia fans will be there? That's a close road game. The tickets are high in the secondary market, probably because there's some Georgia fans there. I don't think it's not going to be anything like Mississippi State a couple years ago where Georgia had a noticeable crowd, or obviously Notre Dame, places like that. But, Georgia's a better team. They should win this game. But Ole Miss has got plenty enough to beat them if they don't play well. And this game being on the road in Oxford, there's some things to watch out for here. I like Georgia, but I'm not jumping up and down about it. Thanks for watching.